KCHW 102.7. Thanks for tuning in to this rebroadcast of this week's Candidate Forum in Colville, Washington. The forum was at the Colville Hub Senior Center and was sponsored by the Northeast Washington Association of Realtors and moderated by KCHW staff. Just a side note, we did have a power outage and we lost about 35 minutes of audio, which was the very beginning opening statements. We'll jump right into the heart of the forum and into the middle of Lori Sampson's candidacy speech. Lori is running for re-election as the Stevens County Coroner.
I'm one of only 1,744 board-certified forensic death investigators in the nation. To be a coroner, you must have this formal level of education and experience in conducting death investigations. You also need the experience in determining which cases will require an autopsy and which ones do not. I sign death certificates on the majority cases that I take jurisdiction over. This requires that I have the skills to interpret medical records, autopsy reports, toxicology reports, in order to determine the cause and manner of death accurately. As your coroner, I must be fluent in all of the RCWs that pertain to death. Knowing these RCWs helps to keep my office in compliance with the law, and it also helps me advise you when I'm dealing with you as a family member and you have hard questions about what you can do and what you can't do and the resources that are out there. I have been endorsed by the Stevens County Republican Central Committee. We believe we vote and the Spokane Tribe of Indians, and I'm asking for your vote on November 6th.
Stevens County Coroner Challenger Brent Hilly.
Not here.
Not here? All right. Next we'll move on to, I have on the list Stevens County Sheriff's Office Sheriff Candidate Mike Berry.
Just kind of in the middle of the speakers.
Well, that threw us for a loop a little bit. I think we got out of order, but I'm glad to be able to get this done. So I'm Mike Berry, and I'm running for sheriff. And I started my career with the sheriff's office as a volunteer reserve deputy, and soon after that I was hired on full-time. And that gave me an opportunity to really get to know just an incredible group of deputies who are doing an unbelievable job of trying to keep we the people of Stevens County safe. And they're doing that job with about half of the manpower that they should have, and with little or no support, communication, or leadership from their current administration. So I listened to the deputies' concerns, and I saw a lot of the issues for myself, and then I decided to talk to community members to find out if they were seeing the same thing from the outside as we were experiencing from the inside. So I talked to police chiefs, fire chiefs, school superintendents, business and community leaders, and almost across the board they told me that there is no interagency cooperation, there's no communication, there's an absence of leadership, and there's an absolute need for a change in the administration of our sheriff's office. So what are my qualifications to be your sheriff and to implement that change? As I said, I've been a deputy with the sheriff's office. I'm also a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force Reserve with 28 years of service. I retired as a lieutenant with 20 years of service from the Albuquerque Police Department. I have a master's degree in business. My wife and I own a small business. And at the end of 2016, I was elected by my fellow deputies to be president of our Stevens County Law Enforcement Association. Since that time, we expanded the membership by 50%, but our crowning achievement was just last December with our first annual Shop with a Cop program right down here at the Walmart. We worked with business and community leaders like the Colville Walmart and the Colville Food Bank. And when we did that, first responders from 5 different agencies volunteered their time to shop with kids who were nominated by school districts from throughout the county. And that interagency cooperation that we had, I think, was a huge part of why the event was so successful. So for almost 3 decades now, the taxpayers of this country have invested in my training and experience. And I could go back to being retired tomorrow. But now that I understand the challenges that our sheriff's office faces, I believe it'd be a foul on my part not to utilize my training and experience to continue to serve my community. So those same community members that I just talked about speaking with, when I talked to them, they told me that they know how shorthanded we are and they really want to do something to help, but right now there's no avenue, there's no process for them to provide that help. So what I'm going to do is put the community back into policing. And what that's going to look like is first I'm going to stand up a Sheriff's Advisory Committee. Then we need to build a robust Sheriff's Auxiliary, and we need to reinvigorate our broken reserve program. Next issue is manpower. Stevens County has the lowest number of deputies per capita of any rural sheriff's office in the state of Washington, and right now we're operating with basically the same number of deputies we had back in 1995. The consequences of working under those conditions day in and day out is that in the last basically 5 years, we've had a well over 50% turnover in our full-time deputy staff. People don't leave bad organizations, people leave bad leaders. The final issue is the jail. It's been obsolete for decades, and to this day our jailers go to work in unsafe and overcrowded conditions without the proper training or equipment. Our sheriff's office needs a proven leader who will fight for the people of Stevens County and for our employees, and right now we don't have that. I am that leader. I'm Mike Berry, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Sheriff Candidate Brad Mankey.
Good evening, my name is Brad Mankey. Want to let you know, first and foremost, I'm a cop. I'm not a politician, but here I am, so I'll try to get to the point here. I'm currently Chief Deputy for the Sheriff's Office. That is an administrative position, and I don't think that I'm a bad leader. I also think that a lot of my fellow deputies, some of which are here, will agree with that. Why am I running for sheriff? Because I want to continue to serve you, our citizens of Stevens County. I've been here in Stevens County as a deputy for 20 years. I was a Colville City cop for 2 years before that. I have made law enforcement, public service, my life choice. It's not just a job, it's not just a career. I'm currently endorsed by our current sheriff, Ken Lowen. I also have the endorsements of all 4 of our surrounding sheriffs because of the relationships that I have been able to build with our partners in our surrounding county and our community members. I'm also endorsed by former county commissioners, judges, current and retired local law enforcement officers, and the Stevens County Republican Central Committee. Excuse me. I've been fortunate enough to hold a lot of positions in our department: detective, patrol sergeant, chief deputy, detective sergeant, child sexual assault investigator. I have over 1,500 hours of law enforcement related training. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice. My volunteer activities here in the community include being a 16-year member of the Colville Fire Department, as well as chief for 2 years. With that and my current position has come a lot of budgeting experience. We, as the Sheriff's Office, are like a large corporation. We have a lot of divisions. That includes the jail, the 911 center, the ambulance center, our county's infrastructure radio, and I'm fortunate enough to be involved in that administration every day, talk with all our folks, work with all that. My first major focus, bring our manpower back up to the staffing that we're funded for. We're shorthanded right now. We got to get our folks back. Next, we need to increase our manpower. It's going to take communication with all of our partners, our commissioners, and you, the citizens. We need to take a more proactive approach in combating our drug program. I ran the most effective proactive drug program we've ever had in this county. We lost our funding. I have ways to get it back. Working with you folks is going to be very key in that. We have a lot of outstanding employees on our department. We need to foster their strengths, and we need to encourage them to take an active role in our community. What it really boils down to, folks, is I have the local knowledge, I have the long-standing knowledge, and I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Moving on, we have Stevens County Treasurer Leslie Valls. I'm sorry, you were all ready to go last time. My form wasn't the same as the table. I'll blame that on Larry.
Hi, my name is Leslie Valls, and I'm your current Stevens County Treasurer. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into that position. Sue Harnish had that position for a number of years, and she actually left the position to take another position within the county as the HR Finance Director. And so at that time, the county commissioners did an interview and unanimously appointed myself to the appointed position of Stevens County Treasurer. I went on later that year and won the election with over 90% of the vote, and that was in November of 2016. I do have years of working locally within both the public and the private sector here in Stevens County. And then it's given me years of executive leadership that makes me uniquely and fully qualified for this position. I do have a bachelor's degree from Eastern Washington University, and that is in business administration with marketing and general management. I also have taken extensive treasury management certification classes since I have been in this position for the last 2.5 years to ensure that the education is there. And so what does the treasurer do? That's a lot of questions that we get at this. Obviously, Tim indicated that there was quite a few years where the auditor didn't have an opponent. There was also quite a few years where the treasurer didn't have an opponent. So there's a lot of folks who don't have a large understanding of what the treasurer's office does and what we do every day. So most of you know that name Sue Harnish, now the name Leslie Balls from the top of that bill that you get in the mail once a year, which is never fun to receive in February. And for those of you who have that escrow payment, you just kind of throw it away and think, whew, that comes out of that mortgage every month. And for those of you who do have to budget for that, obviously you come and see us in April, and sometimes you come and see us in October as well. And that is just a piece of what we do. Obviously it's a large piece of how we interact with folks on a daily basis, but we do collect those property taxes. We also report all those property taxes to those 43 districts that the assessor indicated, because that's ultimately who those property taxes go to. So we have a lot of different districts. They receive reports on a monthly basis to let them know what their financial health is and how much money we've taken in for those districts. So in essence, we are the bank of the county. Just as you visit your local branch here, we are the bank of Stevens County, and we ensure that all those various districts know exactly how much they have at any given time. In fact, we have dozens of accounts, and we balance those accounts to the penny every single day. We are constantly looking for 3 cents. So what do we do with these funds that we take in? Well, I have invested these funds locally in schools, fire districts, and other public safety, Loon Lake Sewer District infrastructure to ensure that we are earning interest and earning the county money, but also keeping that money locally. As a result of this, I have been endorsed by State Treasurer Dwayne Davidson, Senator Shelley Short, 9 other surrounding county treasurers, the Stevens County Republican Central Committee, and the Washington State Farm Bureau. This is due to the reduction that I have ensured that our office has done as far as the tax foreclosures, which obviously that's the least fun part of the treasurer's office. So we have reduced tax foreclosures by 50% by working with folks if they do get in a bind and are unable to pay those taxes, that we talk to them, come up with solutions and exemptions and programs to take payments. My name is Leslie Balls. I am your current Stevens County Treasurer, and I ask for your vote this coming November. Thank you very much.
Stevens County Treasurer Challenger Trina Cox.
Hi, I'm Trina Cox, and I'm running for Stevens County Treasurer. I'm a lifelong resident of Stevens County, and my family has lived here for generations. I've been married to my husband, Ron, for 26 years, and we live on a small farm outside of Cabo where we raise cattle and sheep. We have 2 daughters, and they attend Cabo School. I'm a Cabo High School graduate. I've also earned a Bachelor's of Art degree in Business Administration from Eastern Washington University with majors in management, finance, and economics. I've been employed locally in our accounting finance field since graduation. I started out at USB Insurance Agency as a bookkeeper. I gained valuable knowledge. Sorry, I lost my thought. That helped me to get a job at Northeast Tri-County Health District. While at the health district, I became familiar with budgeting, accounting, and the reporting systems of Stevens County. All the finances ran through Stevens County. I learned the bars coding that was used for tracking payables and receivables. I work daily with the treasurer's and the auditor's office as part of my job. I am currently at the Department of Natural Resources in their finance department, doing accounts payable, receivable, and payroll. It is an extremely busy time of year due to fire season. We are currently processing several $1 million of expenditures each month for payroll, goods, and services for those fires. Also, while at the DNR, I worked in their timber sale program. I was responsible for the accounting for all timber sales. I would do the advertising, help with the auction process, collect bonds and insurance, sent invoices, collected payments, and reconciled accounts. I've learned how to interpret contracts and coordinate compliance between agencies. Many of these sales had revenue of over $1 million, which those go to support our local schools. I have been also on a volunteer for the Northeast Washington Fair as a sheep barn superintendent for 15 years, where I've managed 30 to 40 kids and their parents each year. I've also been in charge of the Northeast Washington Fair Royalty, which has been a good opportunity to work with young ladies. I organize the pageant, the talent, as well as the opening ceremonies for the fair. I'm currently a 4-H leader. In the past I have coached softball and basketball for youth. I feel it is important to give back to the community, and I've learned invaluable experiences in leadership and giving back. I have over 26 years of experience in accounting. I know how to handle appropriate funds. I've worked with contracts and budgets. I've worked with state auditors in the audit process. I've worked with the RCWs and the WACs to ensure policies and procedures were handled correctly. I want to focus on accurately and efficiently managing funds for Stevens County. I'm confident in my ability to be the treasurer, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
All right, just a couple more before we take a break. Stevens County District Court Judge Gina Tevet.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Gina Twite, and for the past 10 years, it has been my distinct honor and privilege to serve as your district court judge. I am 55 years old, and I have had a law degree for 30 years, working in Stevens County as a practicing lawyer, a deputy prosecutor, and judge. For the record, I have been serving on the district court bench for roughly the same amount of time that my opponent has been out of law school. I have always had a passion for justice, and I can honestly say that I am grateful for each and every day to be able to combine the field that I have been committed to for so many years with service to my community. I am proud to say that I was born and raised in Stevens County, where I am a proud wife, mother, and of 3 grown children and community advocate. And I did learn this evening that I am probably related to John Olson, because my family homesteaded at the bottom of that same hill. While on the bench, I have developed a firm belief in the importance of holding people accountable for their actions. As a sitting judge, I have the chance to see people every day in their low points, but what I've come to realize is that accepting responsibility for their mistakes, rather than making excuses, is what allows people to move forward and become better and stronger in the long run. I am often approached by people in the community who have stood before me in my courtroom, who want to simply thank me for my fairness, and even often for my firmness in considering their case. It never ceases to get old, and I am deeply humbled every time it happens. While serving the people, I have been instrumental in the efficient use of court resources and developed many essential court programs, such as small claims court mediation and alternatives to incarceration in the appropriate cases. And I continuously look for ways to make our court more effective for the people that it serves. But perhaps the accomplishment of which I am the most proud is the Stevens County Veterans Court. My grandfather, Merle Enright, was captured and held as a prisoner of war in World War II for nearly 4 years. This was a fact of which I was keenly aware when I was growing up. I was blessed to spend much of my childhood with my grandparents on their family farm outside of Kettle Falls. This gave me a chance to see firsthand the impact that military service can have on those who have served and their families. Supporting our veterans is near and dear to my heart, and I worked hard to help establish Veterans Court, where I have proudly served as a presiding judge since 2013. In closing, there is no substitute for experience, and the citizens of Stevens County deserve an experienced judge who will lead with strength and independence in order to make decisions based solely on what is right for the people of Stevens County. Our county deserves a judge that has not and will not ever tarnish our local justice system with even the appearance of bias based on family and personal relationships. This has been my priority, and I would truly appreciate your support in the upcoming election.
I'm going to say that right. Judge Gina Twice. All right, apparently judges have tough names. Challenger Lech Radzimski. Did I get that right?
All right. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lech Radzimski. I, as you probably guess, am not from Stevens County. I'm a transplant. I spent my childhood moving around a lot. My dad could not sit still. It drove my mother insane. Recently, I had a chance to sit down and reflect kind of over the different places that I've gotten to live over my lifetime, and I've realized that Colville is the one place that I have lived and worked the longest in my life. This is where my wife and I have chosen to put down our roots, and this is where we would like to continue to raise our family. And maybe one day we will be the Colville Radzimskis that everybody talk about that has multiple generations. Got a nice ring to it, I think. We've got two little kids, Sophie and Max. Max is 3, Sophie is 6. Some days they are a blessing, other days they're something else. Because I am a transplant in this community, I have had to build my own reputation. I am proud of everything that I've accomplished in the time that I've worked in this county. In 2007, I started coming up to Stevens County as a defense attorney. I worked for a defense firm out of Spokane County. In 2009, I was offered the position of lead district court prosecutor. I've worked for the prosecutor's office since that point in time, and I'm currently the chief criminal deputy prosecutor. I've handled everything from traffic infractions to homicides, sex cases, drugs, you name it, I've done it. I have had the opportunity to do a lot in my career, and I'm thankful for that. I have argued successfully in the Court of Appeals. The case I argued made it possible for judges to give harsher sentences on property offenses when it was appropriate. I've successfully argued before our Washington State Supreme Court. I have been fortunate to do more in my career than some attorneys do in a lifetime of working in the legal profession. In addition, I have also tried to involve myself in this community. Like Brad, I am also a member of the Colville Fire Department. In about the next month and a half, you'll see Christmas lights go up over Main Street. That's a project that I took over with Vicki Fosback, who's somewhere in the back, and we've partnered with the Boy Scouts in Avista to make sure that Colville looks nice every Christmas season. And I'm also a member of the Colville Civil Service Commission. The work that I've done in the legal community has not gone unnoticed. I am endorsed by 19 judicial officials from several different counties. All the current living judges that have worked in this county, that have done the job, that know what it takes, are supporting me. The legal community that practices in our court system is supporting me. I'm also endorsed by other elected officials and various members in the community. I ask that you research me and talk to my supporters. I could stand here until I'm blue in the face or the red card goes up, but I want you to talk to my supporters and ask them why they've chosen to put their faith in me. I hope you'll vote for me here in the next couple weeks. Thank you.
All right, it's got to be really tough to pack your whole life into 3 minutes and say really, really fast. So let's take a break.
Okay, and in the interest of keeping things moving quickly, we are going to just do a quick change in our format, slight change. Questions to candidates from the audience. The candidates are going to have 2 minutes to answer, not 3. And if a challenger or a candidate attacks a candidate or mentions them by name, or
1 minute rebuttal.
1 minute rebuttal, okay? And then we're going to try and make it as quick as we can to get to that lightning round at the end there. If we have time, we'll do it. If we don't, we'll head on home. But thank you. Before we move on, I just wanted a quick show of hands. New R real estate agents, how many have we got here tonight? See these good people here? And it's a great time to sell your house or buy a house. Keep those hands up and they're handing out cards. Anyway, we are fortunate enough to have a very good economy right now, so things are going well. And it's a reflection of the national economy, one of the strongest in many, many years. So thank you again for coming tonight. And I'm going to move along here and turn it back over to Scott. And let's make it quick, we'll make it brisk. Answers, bing, bing, bing. Okay?
All right.
First, we'll start off following the list again. State Senator, Legislative District 7, we've got Senator Shelley Short. I got a few questions for you. You want to come up front? Now, this first one was going to be toward you and Karen both, but I'm going to let you have a chance to answer first. Why aren't we funding drug courts and task forces statewide with the nearly $400 million in marijuana excise tax annually?
Sure. Great question. One of the things that you do, all of the revenue goes into the state operating budget, and then it's determined how to be allocated. And I think there should be additional funding used for that. In fact, one of the issues I want to talk about, which is an issue that Don talked about, which is the indigent defense funding. You know, those kinds of things are state responsibilities, not county, and yet our county ends up paying the lion's share of that. And so what it becomes is a priority for the folks that are right in the budget, but I think it's a great idea and it should.
All right, next question. Have you found out any more information on getting funding to help with getting a new jail?
Great question again. I took a tour of the Stevens County Jail, and there is no question they are in need of updated facilities. And what I have done is the county, my understanding is the county right now is working on an update to their facilities plan to determine actually what kind of a facility they want to have for their county. That's going to determine the cost, and then we go from there. So I'm letting them do their work to establish what that should look like. I don't think I should be the one to tell them what their jail should be. And then we can go from there to determine how we go about doing that.
And last one, please tell us about your affiliation with the 51st State Movement and your feelings about it.
So Senator Morton, all those years ago, had proposals to split the state. And I don't think we should ever be afraid of talking about that, because really what it is, it's about representation and determining whether or not we have good representation in Eastern Washington in terms of the effects of some of our West Side friends. Talking about it and seeing if it's doable, seeing if it's financially doable. We shouldn't be afraid of that. I'm not afraid of that. And I think that's where we should start. I've not been involved directly with the 51st State group, but we should talk and see whether or not there are reasonable solutions forward if we determine that's the best way. So I'm not afraid to discuss it and look at it.
Thank you very much. Shelley Short. Karen Hardy. So the first question was for both of you that I asked her. It's the same question. Why aren't we funding drug courts and task forces statewide with the nearly $400 million in marijuana excise tax annually?
That's a good question. Stevens County has quite a few grow operations, so we get quite a bit of taxes, and a lot of it doesn't stay here. There is currently some legislation that people are trying to get to move that money into sheriff's office and into law enforcement. I don't believe in that. I believe that needs to go back towards our community and building infrastructure and providing jobs. That was what the original intent was. That the money from the grow operation. Sorry, I'm stumbling on this because I don't have it in front of me. The money from the grow operations was supposed to be an economic boon. So for rural districts like ours that have an agriculture base, this was supposed to provide money back to us. There is no correlation between grow operations and more crime. So, I don't think that crime is where we want to put that money.
Next question. You always like to blame the party in charge in Olympia for all the problems in this state. Do you realize the Democrats have been in charge in Olympia for the last 30 years?
I don't actually blame the party in charge. I just think people need to take responsibility for their actions. The Democrats actually haven't been the party in charge for the last 30 years. The Republicans were in charge of the Senate for the last, shall we count me, 6, 8 years? 4 years. 4 years. 4 years. That balance of power goes back and forth between Republicans being in charge of the Senate and Democrats being in charge of the House and vice versa. We have this weird idea over here that we are underrepresented because everything comes from the west side. There are 24 districts in this state that are represented on the I-5 corridor. There are 49 districts in this state. Do the math. Each district has 130,000 people. We do have representation, but what we have done is we've divided ourselves by party. So whoever's in charge, the other people get left out and we feel like we're not being represented. I want to work with everyone. Like I said earlier, I don't care what your party affiliation is. We need someone in the Senate who's going to work for everyone in this room, and I want to be that person.
Last one here. If elected, you will be in a highly stressful job. The voters should know why you need a service dog.
Absolutely. I'm surprised this question hasn't come up before. Yes, I will be in a highly stressful job, and I do have a service dog. Say hi, Rio. Her name is Rio. She's been with me for several years. I have some medical conditions, and we can go about what you are allowed to ask me with ADA or not, but because I want to be your senator, I'll be really, really honest with you. I have some medical conditions that I can't tell when I need more medication. She can smell it. She is scent trained, and she responds to the changes in my body chemistry and lets me know. It's really simple. It has nothing to do with stress other than I can burn through more medication when I'm stressed. But she is here so that I can have a big, busy life. Before I started taking her everywhere with me, I had my husband and I had my children with me. Well, my children grew up. Yay! And they graduated from college. Yes! And my husband would really like to just go golfing. So I have a dog. And it is a really simple accommodation, and I'm really proud that she will be the first service dog on the floor of the Senate. And I think it's a really great opportunity to let people know that no matter what has happened in your life, there are simple things you can do to have a big, big, busy life. And if it only means going around with dog hair on me, that's a pretty good thing.
Thank you. That's it. Moving on to State Representative District 7, Position 1. First, Jacqueline Maycumber. One question for you, Jacqueline. And then we've got one for you too, Randy. So.
Check out the dog.
All right, Jacqueline, that says, you express pride and your part in obtaining funds for our area broadband funds, assistance of $5 million to help the elderly clean up their properties. Exactly what are you referring to and for whom, and where do you expect these funds to come from?
It was in the 2018 capital budget, and it's in the Department of Commerce. The press release was just released last week, and they are reviewing applications, and that would be processed at the end of the month. So I'm pretty proud of that and excited how that process is. Also multifamily dwelling. We need to look at attainable housing in this area. I think a lot of us understand the housing prices that have gone up, and making sure that teachers can move back and are able to purchase homes. Since I have a couple minutes to answer that question, I will talk about my endorsements that I'm quite proud of. I was endorsed and given donations from the Retired Teachers Association and the Washington State Principals Association. So when we talk about McCleary teacher funding, I do want to mention that I was an elected school board member. And as an elected school board member, I did work on that legislation. Unfortunately, as I mentioned last year, the way it was written made rich schools richer and poor schools poorer. When we moved to a population database and looking at funding for children, the rural school districts really lose. Unfortunately, a lot of those landowners and property owners are going to be paying those taxes, and it removes a 1% cap that protects each one of us from a neighbor building $1 million home next to you and then having your assessed value increase drastically. So the state of Washington has a 1% cap on your property taxes. However, that was removed when it comes to McCleary funding, and I did not think that was right. But I do have endorsements of many others, including the Washington State International Firefighters Association and our local Firefighters Association, and I also received the Compass Legislator of the Year, the Council of Metropolis Sheriffs and Police Officers, which I'm very honored about. So thank you so much, and I'll be happy to answer any more questions.
Challenger Randy Michaelis. Randy, this person wanted to hear some more of the ways the state could improve education for our children.
Thank you. I think, the mic. I think what we have here, and this is where probably my opponent and I disagree, is that McCleary was the result of a lawsuit. And so we responded by coming up with a fix that addressed the lawsuit. So what we did is took care of the lawsuit, but what we didn't do is take care of the funding. So I think I want to go back to some of the things that we have. We have a shortfall in special education. I work with those teachers. I have two programs that I supervise in my school on special education. I also have a program for working with students on the autism spectrum disorder. Those are very much part of my heart and what I'm doing. We have not funded special ed, we have not funded school counselors, and we have not tried to address the issues of mental illness. McCleary did not do that, and that's unfortunate. And so those are the kinds of things that we can do to improve our education. Where does the money come from? I echo a lot of my friend Mike Bell in terms of what we want to do in tax reform. I believe we're already paying too much money, but I believe that there are 650 corporate loopholes, tax loopholes, that we can address and make changes there. We have good teachers in the 7th. Many of them came from Whitworth. We have good principals. Many of them came from Whitworth. We are probably doing better in preparing teachers than we have ever. But we need schools that have finances, we need schools that have programs, and we need the state legislature to pay attention to those things. It's hard to raise money when you teach in Republic or Curlew. My sister, her first teaching job was in Curlew. And I remember she lived above the drugstore and she went out and bought all her own supplies just to make it work. So, thank you.
Moving on to State Representative District 7, Position 2, we have one question for challenger Mike Bell. All right, Mike, the question to you is, how can our rural hospitals be run in order to stay open and fiscally viable?
Well, let me just say, as I mentioned before, I worked with small rural hospitals for 40 years, everyone in the 7th District. And let me just tell you a story I was up at the Republic Parade and I was talking to a bunch of gentlemen, and I asked them, what's the most important thing in your community? And they said, the hospital. And I said, you're right, because if that hospital goes under, retired people aren't going to live here, businesses aren't going to be here, your town's going to dry up and blow away. And 7 years ago, your hospital was on the brink of closing. The bad debts were rising at the tune of 25% a year, and they had no money. They had tapped out the community for everything it was worth, and so they were teetering, along with most of the other small rural hospitals in the country, especially the rural ones. And what happened was, all of a sudden, those bad debts dropped by 2/3. And suddenly life was good. They had money, they were in the black. And what saved those hospitals was the Affordable Care Act. It insured people, it expanded Medicaid, it required employers to provide insurance. That's what saved that hospital. That's what saved your hospital here in Colville, in Chewelah, in Omak, in all of these small communities. 70–80% of the hospitals that have closed in this country have closed in states that did not expand Medicaid, did not take advantage of the Affordable Care Act. So the first thing we need to do is stop voting against the Affordable Care Act, because a vote against the Affordable Care Act is a vote against your hospital. Let me just make that real clear. A vote against the Affordable Care Act is a vote to close your hospital. That's something that we need to be aware of, and a lot of people are not aware of it. And so that would be my opinion, is that we need more uninsured or more insured people, fewer uninsured, and good managers at these hospitals, and good accountants to work with them to make sure they get the money they need, which is what I did. So thank you.
All right, Stevens County Assessor's position, we have questions for both candidates. John, could you come up? John Olson, our County Assessor. First question, John, will be one that you'll both be asked to answer. It says, the state has guidelines for assessors. How will you protect property owners' rights? And are any of our rights currently being violated?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question, because where rights seem to be violated is where value drops in property. And it can be caused from both private and public side of the coin. We see the Growth Management Act as a threat to coming to our property, and how we're going to prepare ourselves for the rights, and can we have the utility in our property which we thought we have. But if we don't have management, there's some things that kind of I see as a county assessor that are just blow me away. I could take you on a tour where people move into into a neighborhood and just create all sorts of havoc. I had people come in to me and say, we need to have our assessment dropped because we've got trash that's just moved in next door and has affected our rights, our value of our property. We can't sell it anymore. I get kind of caught in the middle of these things. The assessor is an executive office in the county, and we execute and administer assessment laws. And to keep myself constitutionally whole, I do not try to get into the legislative realm of things. I do not use the assessor's office as a bully pulpit for any special agenda that's coming down on what we see and hear sometimes at our property rights. I have my personal position as an individual, and I will vote as an individual along with the rest of you, but I swore an oath to value property independently, impartially, and without bias, and that's what I'm going to do.
The next question for you, John. Has the county ever checked the hundreds of timber management plans to see if landowners are completing them?
Well, we'd like to do that. I love timber owners. I am a timber owner. And timber has been really kind of the lifeblood of Stevens County for many, many decades. We have 3 levels of timber owners. We have the industrial corporates that own timber. We have people like me that are farmers and have hundreds of acres of timber, and then we harvest it on a continual basis. We want people to be in the timber programs. We want harvesting. We want our economy to grow. But there is an element that's growing in where you're in a 20-acre classification, you build your home site, and they don't want to live on a stump ranch. They have no intention of ever harvesting their timber. And so they get a reduced assessment, which shifts to everybody else to pay for the property tax, and they don't add to the economy. So we need to be more vigilant with timber planting. I'm happy to tell you that Stevens County is the only county in the state of Washington that is increasing in the number of private timber landowners. And we need to think about that. But at the same time, we've got to protect ourselves from the tax shifts that it causes. Currently, with timberland in farm and agricultural land. And with our senior exemptions and veterans exemptions, we love all of you. How much do we love you? We love you to the tune of $1.1 billion of reduction in assessed valuation, which shifts about $11 million on the rest of us.
One more, John. What is your plan to decrease the inflating taxes we have dealt with under your leadership and resolve the unbalanced assessments and give us back our property rights and liberty?
Wow. Taxes, 43 taxing districts. We collect $43 million. We have 43,000 parcels that we assess. And we have a little over 43,000 people in this county. So, what do I do to protect that? Well, Jacqueline alluded to a 1% cap. Those 43 taxing districts make their budget every year, and they are governed by the constitutional cap of 1%, plus we check them for their statutory caps in the laws. That's what drives our taxes, those 43 taxing districts. And once they make their budget resolutions, each of those 43 districts, that's what the government takes. The assessor does not set that budget amount levy. That comes into us from the 43 taxing districts. They wait to see what I do with the assessed valuations. The market is booming. Assessments are going, property values are going up. The law says assess at 100% true and fair market value. And that's what I'm going to do, because that's the law. And then we set the levy rates. So every time I come through a taxing area, I cause tax shifts. And there is no tax savings program. Seniors, yes, maybe a savings to you, but it shifts to somebody else. And veterans, same thing. Same thing in the timber markets. It shifts to the rest of us, and that's about a 20% tax shift on all of us. So I'm riding that magic surfboard trying to keep that balance.
John Olson, all done, John. Now some questions for our challenger for the Stevens County Assessor, Rick Johnson. How you doing, Rick? Good. All right, your first question is the same one I asked him to start off with. State has guidelines for assessors. How will you protect property owners' rights? And do you believe any of our rights are currently being violated?
Yes, I believe a lot of our rights are being violated. John mentioned the GMA, the Growth Management Act, and there's a lot of things that come under the Growth Management Act. Bottom line, the Growth Management Act is government controlling your property. It's not private anymore. We have, our state constitution when it was formed was 38 pages in length. And now the RCWs are over 20,000 pages in length. And the property tax section of the RCWs is 166 pages. A lot of these RCWs, which is the Revised Code of Washington, are bureaucratically formed legislation, which is unconstitutional. A lot of times our state legislatures will pass things on to the bureaucrats who are not elected and who do not take an oath of office. Also, the oath of office is very important because we are to uphold the state constitution, and I alluded to Article 9, Section 3 of the state constitution, which the Republican Party platform here in Stevens County says this is what we ought to do. And that particular portion of the Constitution states that the funding of public schools in the state of Washington is to be derived from the natural resources of state lands, not from private property owners. And so we need to have some reform at the state level, and I think that the auditors, the treasurers, and the assessors need to form a pact to help guide our legislators.
Got a couple more for you. How will you change the rules to get your agenda across at the state level?
That's a great question. I would hope that I would be able to be a leader amongst the assessors in the state of Washington. And, you know, we have a lot more conservative Republican assessors in the state of Washington than we do liberal, agenda-oriented assessors in the state. And so hopefully we could work together to work with our elected officials in Olympia to try to get some reform taking place in this area.
All right, the last one is, what's the greatest reason that the people of Stevens County will be benefited by your service over your opponents?
Well, I do have a passion for private property, and we don't have private property anymore. You know, the initial Constitution that was drafted for the state of Washington in 1878 was drafted by 40 gentlemen over in Walla Walla. And in that Constitution, it provided for a lodeal title. And a lodeal title means you cannot place a lien on somebody's property because it truly is private property. It was rejected by Congress in Washington, D.C., and it took 11 years later, in 1889, a new drafted Constitution took place, but this time it was drafted in Olympia. It did not provide for a lodeal title, and so we have fee simple title, which means you can be charged a fee, and you can lose your property if you don't pay the fees, which is property taxes. So again, people need to understand what private is and what it is not. And I think we all see that government is intruding more and more and more, and it's destroying the culture that we have here in Stevens County, which I believe is a wonderful culture. So I want to get back to that. Thank you.
Rick Johnson. We'll move on to Stevens County Auditor. A couple questions for Mr. Tim Gray. All right, Tim, the first one's going to be both for you and Lori when it's her turn. What is the single most important issue you will focus on if elected?
Let's see. Would it be in licensing, recording, elections? I think most important to me is elections. I think everyone in the room wants to have elections that are open, fair, that you feel good about them, regardless of what the outcome is. And with that, I would mention that if any of you would like to watch the mail returning process or the ballot opening process, we make that available every day that we're opening ballots. We love to have people come and watch. We want you to see what that process is. So I think that's...
I've got another one for you here. It says, are you the one who brought attention to the misappropriated funds that is now under litigation? And then it says in parentheses, Homeless Funds Commissioner?
Did I bring attention to it?
Yeah, did you bring attention to it?
We have a situation going on right now where some money was spent out of the homeless money that we collect from some of our recording fees. That question has been is being handled by the prosecutor, who has made a request of both the State Auditor's Office and the Washington State Patrol to look into the matter. The definition of homeless money, the uses of homeless money, is not overly specific. And so a question has come up about that. And we will see, hopefully within the next couple months, I would assume, where that will fall out.
Stevens County Auditor Challenger, Lori Larson. We have 3 questions for Lori. I'm going to ask you the same first question I asked him. You came prepared? What is the single most important issue you will focus on if elected?
So I think this is an excellent question, and my opponent referenced the diversity in the office. And so as I'm contemplating my answer to this, I think it's really key to consider just staff training, morale, creating a culture of excellence within each of the departments, so that we can all, even though we're a diverse team of people, whether we're working in licensing or recording, elections, accounting, that we're all pulling together for a shared mission, and that is excellence and efficiency in the auditor's office. So that would be my most critical and kind of first item to address.
Next question says, please explain what GAAP means to you and your experience with GAAP. How will you apply GAAP as a Stevens County Auditor?
So GAAP refers to the generally accepted accounting principles. It is one of the models of accounting that's used in government. In the county, we are actually a cash basis accounting system, and so there are some similarities certainly in the different accounting principles, but that one is actually not applicable in county government.
Last one. What qualifications do you have that will make you a better county auditor than Tim Gray?
So I appreciate this question because qualifications is absolutely what you should all be considering. And qualifications aren't necessarily earned by having spent a long time doing the same thing. I have a great deal of background in public administration. Public administration is basically the idea that there is a government that is carrying out the will of the citizens and being either implementing or defining good policy for the common good. My background in public administration is going to be very key. My background also in education and working as a public administrator in the public sector, recognizing that it is the taxpayers to whom we must be accountable. What was the rest of that question there? Sorry. Okay, kind of lost.
It just says what qualifications do you have that'll make you a better county auditor?
Well, I think one thing that I think needs to be considered is the fact that I'm going to bring some new energy, some new ideas, to the office. My opponent has been there a very long time, and whether it is being prepared to lead the staff to adopt new technology, updated computer systems, or just setting a tone of customer service and accountability to the taxpayer, I think that I have the edge in that, and I think perhaps it's time for a change. Leave it at that.
Thank you. Lori Larson. We move on to Stevens County Commissioner number 2 position. We have questions for both Dawn and Jeffrey. Dawn, could you come up? Dawn DeShiel. All right, Don, first question. It says, do you see a need for major changes to the County Growth Management Comprehensive Plan?
Well, we only have 2 minutes here. The comprehensive plan is scheduled for an update, I believe, in 2020. We'll be preparing our thoughts and other things on that comp plan update. That'll be a big project for our land services director, who happens to be here. I won't mention his name because he's already got plenty of other projects to do, but that he'll do that with the commissioners, and hopefully our aim is to make the comp plan more friendly to personal property rights and to development in the county that's not dictated by central planning in Olympia.
Next question. Can you please explain the line item in the homeless fund budget showing an expense of $30,326 for the Borski House, and how is this being a good steward of our taxpayer funds?
So the homelessness fund is a fund that's not in the county budget. When I talk about county current expense budget that runs everything in the courthouse, the homelessness fund, as Tim and some others had mentioned, is funds that are derived from recording fees that have made homelessness advocates weren't able to get a direct allocation from the legislature to fund homelessness programs. So they went another way and were able to get permission to assign fees to recording. So recording documents that used to cost you $8 now cost you $91, I believe, for the first page. And how much, Tim? $99. Oh, it goes up every couple of years. So $99 of that, $91 probably is allocated to homelessness funds and then redistributed, part retained by the county, most of it sent to the state, then reallocated to the counties for a fund dedicated to prevent homelessness and to provide funds for homelessness programs. We fund several of them in the county. Rural Resources is our designated homeless entity, but we fund things like the Colville Warming Center, the new Life Center by Safeway there for homeless unwed mothers. We've contributed money out of that fund for the Casey McCurran House, where people with disabilities learn to operate, newly acquired disabilities learn to operate in the house. The deal for the Boharski House was a result of the Kettle River flooding, which undercut their house along with some others, and they expended all of their assets to get partway there, and we looked at our homelessness plan, which is to help prevent homelessness, and allocated some funds to have a contractor move that.
Ridiculous.
And if that's...
Ridiculous.
Thank you.
We now return to the recording of this week's Candidate Forum. You're listening to KCHW 102.7.
Challenger for Stevens County Commissioner position number 2, Jeffrey Charvet. We've got a couple questions. The same one I started Dawn off with. Do you see a need for major changes to the county's growth management comprehensive plan?
I'm always concerned about any rules, especially it seems like it comes from the west side, that affect our property rights here. And like he said, they're due for a revision. And I definitely want to stand in a situation where I'm supporting homeowners for their rights. There's always this issue though of because it's kind of a zoning issue. You move someplace and you don't necessarily want a pig farm right next to you. If the pig farm's already there, well, to me that's first come, first served. But there's zoning issues in there, and I'd be anxious to get into the middle of helping revise that.
Next question: how will you change the way commissioners do business in Stevens County?
That's actually really an easy one for me. Because, and part of this isn't their fault, that people don't understand what commissioners do and how important this office is. Because of that, people don't go to these meetings a lot. There are at least a couple days a week, very important meetings that they have that are open to the public. So it's a little bit of everybody's fault in a way. My mission is going to be to, one, I really want to educate people as to exactly what county commissioners do and exactly what they're responsible for. And I even think about ultimately going to the schools, because it kind of starts there. Because they need to understand, it's going to make every difference in the world, someone voting for a position that's this important versus a position that they don't understand. I kind of thought from the beginning that I would really like to start a commissioner's corner in the paper, that every week you get to hear what has come before the commissioners and what their response to it has been. That way you feel a part, you at least know what's going on, and that's probably the most important thing I'd like to do.
All right, we're moving on to the Stevens County Sheriff's race. Sheriff candidate Mike Berry. right, Mike, your first question says, what is the greatest reason that the people of Stevens County will be benefited by your service over your opponent?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I bring is experience in places other than just Stevens County. I think it's very important to have a time that you spend here in Stevens County and to know people, and it's a big part of the community. But it's also important to not put too much or total emphasis on the fact that you know somebody or you grew up with them. So what I'm going to bring is professionalism from coming from a large law enforcement agency somewhere else, and professionalism from being in the United States military for almost 29 years now. So I have extensive executive experience in running organizations the same size or larger than our current sheriff's office. And I think it's important that we not only have experience at the very lowest tactical level of command. There's 3 levels of command, either in law enforcement or the military, and it's tactical, operational, and strategic. And if basically all of your experience comes from the tactical level, you just don't know how to operate at the higher executive strategic level. So I have extensive experience, both through the military and through my previous career in law enforcement, in operating at that level and interacting with, again, not just our own organization, not just the line troops, but also interacting with federal and state agencies, our community, interagency partners, and that's the kind of focus that you need to have when you're operating at the more strategic level.
All right. 2-part question here. First part is, how do you expect to pay to train part-time deputies? And to go along with that, have you cleared with the union for these part-time deputies? How are you going to pay them without benefits?
I have approached, I have spoken to the union, and there are processes, I'm told, through our business rep to bring on folks, and it could be as provisional deputies, but there are stipulations where we can bring folks on for at least a finite period of time as part-time deputies, and I think that was the union question. So I have broached the subject with the union about how can we do it without necessarily full benefits or retirement or different things like that. But I've been told that there are workarounds by our business representative to allow that to happen, at least to bring them on for a finite period of time. Second, how will I pay for them? I think that was the other part of the question. Anyways, that's what I'll answer. I think that was the question. Again, right now, we fund 27 full-time positions, and my thing is if we go to the county commissioners and show that, listen, we can fund 3, 4, 5 part-time deputies for the exact same price as 1 full-time deputy. And the reason that this is kind of important to me is when I first got here, I initially wasn't sure how much time, after 20 years in Albuquerque, how much more time I wanted to spend in law enforcement. So I asked the question, can I be a part-time deputy? I did the research with the state of Washington, and there is a fully certified part-time deputy position that's possible within the state of Washington. I said, I'll work 1,000 hours, pay me $25 an hour. I don't want any insurance. I've already got it through TRICARE. I don't want any retirement. I've already got it through the state of New Mexico. I just want to work. And what I was told is we don't do that here as a sheriff's, as a county organization. But I think we do need to do that here, and I have done my research. So when I pitch it to the county commissioners that we can bring in 3 or 4 or 5 people and charge the same amount as we would for 1 full-time sworn deputy, I believe that that kind of innovation and new ideas is going to be received well.
That's it. All right. A couple questions for Sheriff Candidate Brian Mason. All right, Brad, your first question is, how do you plan to change the way the Sheriff's Office has been operating, fix the problems, and work with the people to bring us more liberty, confidence, and security than we've had?
Okay, the question is, how do we fix the problems? Unfortunately, the question doesn't define problems. Every single one of us has a perception of what our problems are. My biggest perception of what our problems are is we don't have enough money and we don't have enough manpower. You can't get more manpower without money. You can't just find a big pot of gold and create money. What it all boils down to is education. We have to educate ourselves as the public. We have to determine what we value in our law enforcement, how much law enforcement we need. We need to speak up publicly, and we need to if it's our wishes, your wishes as citizens, we need to talk to the moneymakers and say, come on guys, let's pony up. This is important. Education, communication. Everybody has their definition of problems. I'd like to hear everybody's definition of what they think the problem is with the sheriff's office.
Sure. Next question. Please outline your plan and or goals for fixing the relationship with the coroner's office.
That's an easy one. I don't have a problem with our relationship with the coroner's office. Lori and I have worked extensively for years. If she's elected, we can go back to business as usual. We can talk. We can put clear expectations on each other and take care of business. If Brent's elected, same thing. He'll be new to the office. It shouldn't be a problem.
That's it. All right, moving on to Stevens County Treasurer, and we've got questions for both candidates. Treasurer Leslie Balls, excuse me. Just one for you, Leslie. It says, since assistant Walmart managers and district court deputy clerks don't deal with investing, are your only qualifications in accounting and investing what you learned on the job as the current treasurer? Please explain.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the question. That's a multi-part question, and obviously that is specifically talking about some of my Stevens County experience. I did not grow up in Stevens County. I'm from Olympia, Washington. I have that bachelor's degree in Eastern Washington University, so I actually came over to this side of the mountain to get that degree and fell in love with Eastern Washington, fell in love with the Spokane area, and then came up here to visit the Colville National Forest, and I think the rest is history. However, after I graduated with that degree in Eastern Washington, with that business degree, I moved back home, which would have been Olympia, Washington, and I worked for the DSHS, so Washington State Department of Social and Health Services, and I worked as a medical assistant specialist too, which I'm sure sounds really tacky and it sounds like it's in the medical field. However, it has nothing to do with medical. It has entirely to do with accounting, and it has to do with administering programs for DSHS in a big state of Washington building in order to facilitate Medicare, Medicaid, and other accounting programs that need to be facilitated for large agencies such as that. So when I came over to this area, I immediately applied for local agencies and realized that a lot of that work is actually done in the Olympia area. So I was actually lucky enough to get hired in district court and spent a great number of years in district court as a courtroom clerk, as some of you who have worked in the county might recognize me, or also as working within the civil department, and they do take in, actually, as the judge can tell you, a lot of fines in district court. Obviously, Walmart as an assistant manager is, you spend a lot of time on the floor. Some of you have recognized my face from that, but you also spend a lot of time in the financial sector of that store as well. That is a multi-billion-dollar business where we make a lot of financial transaction decisions every single day behind the scenes in order to ensure that the hundreds of people that work for that company, specifically in this store, remain employed. And we make those decisions on the spot on a daily basis. And then I went on to become the Stevens County Treasurer, and for the last 2.5 years have worked with a $50 million investment portfolio. Thank you very much.
Continuing on, a challenger for Stevens County Treasurer, Trina Cox. And 2 questions for Trina. All right, first question, Trina. What is your investment experience? What did you invest in? And how much interest was earned?
Well, that is a varied answer.
I just read what I get.
Right.
What's your investment experience?
My investment experience is, well, at Tri-County Health District, I did invest the funds there through the county. I would take it to the County Treasurer's Office than for investing. I have done some personal investing on my own, but as I went through this process, I've reached out to current treasurers as well as some past treasurers to figure out what they have been doing and get some answers, because I don't have millions of dollars to invest for Stevens County right now. So I've got some information about what some treasurers are doing in other spots as well as in the past, and that is my experience.
Next question. Many times when people run for office against an incumbent, it's because they think they can do things better. Please provide an example of what you will do better.
Well, I feel like that I have lived in this community for a long time. I've worked in the timber industry as well as working with laying out property lines and things through the DNR. And I feel that working through the treasurer's office with my 26 years of accounting experience, I have a good foundation for knowing how to operate within budgets. I've worked with the auditor's office before, working with expenditures. I've worked with payroll. I feel like that I'm a leader, and that through my experience through the fair and throughout the other things I've done, that I would like to lead the treasurer's office to be a strong for Stevens County to feel confident in me putting funds in for Stevens County. Thank you.
That's it. All right, we're going to move on to the last section here, Stevens County District Court Judge, and we've got a few questions for Judge Gina Twite. Don't worry, Glenn, we've got some for you, Chief. All right, first one. According to Judge Mono-Smith and Reeves, 90% of crime in the county is drug-related, and the crime rate has doubled since 2014. What have you done, what will you do to combat this problem?
Well, I've certainly seen the result of the drug problem in Stevens County. I see it each and every day in district court, not as a drug crime, because at this day and age, there's hardly any drug crimes that are misdemeanors. And so, by and large, the drug problem in terms of the crimes charged goes through Superior Court, and that would, and so I, personally at this point don't deal a lot with drug crimes in district court. However, I am presiding over the only therapeutic court in Stevens County, the Veterans Court. Veterans Court does model itself after the Drug Court Association, Therapeutic Drug Court. So certainly I'm available, and our court is available as a model if ever there were to be a drug court in Superior Court, which I think is the appropriate place for it to be. I have personally observed drug courts in Spokane County and how they operate. They can be a very valuable tool. Clearly in our county, probably throughout the country for that matter, we do need to address our drug problem, and we need to do something differently than what we're doing. It's a huge problem for our county and our country, and I would love to help in any way with that issue.
Next question. The prosecutor's office and the judge's office are at odds recently. How does that figure into the judge's race?
Well, currently I am the district court judge. I am not at odds with the prosecutor's office, so I'm not fully understanding where the question is, where it's going. I have recently brought to light for the public information about the court being challenged jurisdictionally and I think constitutionally by the prosecutor's office. I think it's important for the public to know what's going on. I think in many ways here in our local county, we have problems that mirror what's going on nationally. And I think it's the public's right to know and the public's right to be informed. I have continued to do my job professionally and independently, even in light of a lot of difficulties that I have had to deal with. Let me just give you an example from the very recent. Yesterday, I was simply astounded when a deputy prosecuting attorney walked into my courtroom to cover his docket in blue jeans. I think this should be astounding for probably everyone in the room. To me, it just shows an example of the blatant disregard and disrespect that I personally deal with on probably a daily basis. And yes, a lot of it does come from the prosecutor's office. And that's what we're faced with, folks. I think you should know that. I invite everyone to come to my courtroom. I think the public should know and see what goes on. And I think you would appreciate that I continue to be very patient and professional in light of these ongoing challenges.
This next question, it's a little hard to read. It says, were you fined $4,500 by the Public Disclosure Commission for your failure to declare a donation for hiring a private investigator in order to look into your opponent in the last election? And did this also result in an admonishment by the State Judicial Conduct Commission?
Well, to the first part, no, I was not fined $4,500. In 2014, during my campaign for re-election to District Court Judge, my opponent at that time filed a complaint with the Public Disclosure Commission, claiming that I had not claimed a certain item as an expenditure. And I fully and honestly and openly communicated with the Public Disclosure Commission. For people that don't know, that is the agency that's responsible for overseeing campaign contributions and expenditures. Their motto is follow the money. And so their purpose really is to allow the public to see who is contributing to the different candidates and then perhaps reach your own conclusions based on that. I did not file an expenditure that I did not believe was an expenditure. When the Public Disclosure contacted me with that complaint, I answered their questions openly, completely, and at the end of a long process of communicating with them, they concluded that an expenditure that I didn't claim should have been claimed. I can tell you that I didn't necessarily agree with their conclusion, but I decided in the interest of being open and fair, fine, if they want me to claim this as an expenditure, I will, and I did. And the minute that I claimed it, they filed a complaint and said, well, now that you've claimed this, you've been very late in claiming this. And so at that point, they filed a complaint. I contacted an attorney, and who, of course, an attorney that knew much more about this process than I did, and he was certainly dismayed at how open and honest I had been with the Public Disclosure Commission. And honestly, all of the information they received about the whole item in question came from me directly. And so I guess I accepted their finding. I didn't agree with it. I paid their fine. And again, that was from 2014. I have nothing to hide with regards to what happened there. And I guess that's my explanation. Thank you.
All right, last one for you. In this campaign, you have repeatedly emphasized the need for a judge to be independent, and you have distinguished yourself from your opponent on this point. What sorts of things tend to compromise a judge's independence, and in what ways do those conflicts impact the integrity and fairness of the judicial process?
Well, for starters, I think it's imperative to our judicial system that judges be independent. If they are not independent, then that's what encroaches upon the idea of judges being biased. I have no family relationships that would ever call that into question. My opponent works in the prosecutor's office with his wife, who is a deputy prosecutor, and also her brother, who is a deputy prosecutor, and he's running for judge. I don't think it takes most people a big imagination to realize what sort of bias that inherently would set up if he were to become the judge. His wife and brother-in-law would be working for the prosecuting attorney, who is also endorsing him. Even if there weren't actual bias, there certainly, I think, would always be the appearance of bias in that scenario. That is an issue. There's also issues with connections with the other components of our justice system, such as law enforcement. While I have all the respect in the world for law enforcement and what they do each and every day to protect us, I do not personally maintain friendships with them, and nor do I think a judge should. And I think that is another problem that will be a concern for bias, or at least the appearance of bias, in this election that my opponent brings to the table, that I do not. The fact is, I'm a private person. I work in the public each and every day, but I go home to a very loving family and some few close friends. That's how I choose to live my life and spend my time, and I don't mingle my professional responsibilities in any way with my private life. Thank you.
Continuing on, Stevens County District Court Judge Challenger Lech Redzinski.
Yeah.
So my wife and brother-in-law practice in the prosecutor's office. Neither one of them practice in district court with any regularity. My wife practices exclusively in Superior Court. If I'm elected, neither one of them is going to practice in district court. I'm not going to hear any cases associated with them. This is a non-issue, ladies and gentlemen. There is one thing that every judge in this state has in common. Before they became a judge, they were an attorney. They worked in law firms. Prosecutors worked with law enforcement. But when you become a judge, your entire life, and I've talked about this before, is bound by the Code of Judicial Conduct. If I'm elected, all of my dynamics, all of my friendships, all the relationships I have will change. Every judge that's ever been elected has gone through this process. I'm not going to be any different, and I'm not going to have any problems making that transition.
All right, I've got two questions for you. First one, these are questions that were also asked to Gina. Prosecutor's office and the judge at odds recently. How does that figure into the judge's race?
How does it figure into the judge's race? I don't think it does. Judge Twite talks about independence, and that's absolutely vital in the judicial system. A judge should make decisions independently. However, judges are not islands. They are part of a bigger judicial system. Judges have an ethical responsibility to work with other judges and other court officials to make sure that justice and the court system runs smoothly and efficiently. One of the things, my biggest priority, if I can get elected, is to get everybody talking. Everybody needs to be talking on a regular basis. Judges, prosecutors, we've heard about this a little bit before. We've got probably about 15, I think a dozen or 15 public defenders that we work with. Law enforcement, the jail. What's missing? Nobody's talking to one another right now. That needs to start. If we can get everybody in a room and start talking about bigger issues and not all this other stuff, we can actually make our court system work more efficiently and work better for you, the citizens of this county.
According to Judge Monosmith and Reeves, 90% of crime in the county is drug-related. The crime rate has doubled since 2014. What have you done? What will you do to combat this problem?
So 90%, I'd say that number is even higher. I think 95, 98% of everything that we have, that even in district court, is not, it's drug-driven. We have a major issue with methamphetamine and heroin. We can start a district court drug court. We can start a superior court drug court. This goes back to what I said just a moment ago. Working together and combining the efforts of both courts. Ferry County has actually partnered with their district court in getting a drug court going. I think that would be a wonderful thing, and we're actually kicking that idea around right now. The statistics behind drug courts are that they work. We need one here. That'll drop recidivism. That's the big thing. Get people to stop committing crimes. What will that do for the sheriff's office? That'll relieve some of the pressure. What will that do for the commissioner's office? Maybe you won't need to employ 12 or 15 public defenders, and we can actually address this issue. But I think, again, we need to start working collaboratively and get a program going, and it doesn't need to land in district. It doesn't need to land in Superior. It needs to land, and we need to get serious about this problem.
That's it. Thank you. Me and Larry need to confer for a moment.
We're ready to go to candidate closing statements, or the lightning round, where each candidate asks the other a question. Do we have time for that? Is everybody ready to go home? Ready to go home? Let's go to closing statements, so we'll just go right around the horn here.
Yep. So, Senator Shelby Short, you're up first.
1 minute.
And these are just 1 minute closing statements.
Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and thank you for the honor that you've given me for me to be your elected official the last 10 years. I can tell you it's about you, it's not about me. It's about the things that you want and the desires you have. And I have the experience to put the relationships together, to put the people in the room, to get things done. It's not necessarily the ideas I come up with at church. And one thing I'd just like to address, really quickly with the bone marrow bill, that came from a constituent who was concerned that not enough information was getting out to people to encourage people to become donors. We have multicultural, indigenous folks that do not have access to the needed therapy. And so her desire, based on her granddaughters, was to actually increase access, and that's what that bill did, and that's what created a bill nationwide. So thank you very much, and it's an honor, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
State Senator, Legislative District 7 Challenger Karen Hardy, 1 minute closing statement.
1 minute. Okay, so thank you, all the candidates, first off. Thank you, everyone who stayed this long. And yeah, again, I'm going to ask for your vote. I'm just going to keep asking for your vote, because I just heard a whole lot of people talking about what's not working, and how much crime has doubled, drug crime has doubled since 2014, 90% is drug. What are we doing about that? What are we doing about the issues that are really happening that these people are having to deal with? I applaud all of the service that every single person who's elected does. Anyone who has stepped up to be a public servant deserves your respect, and I respect every one of them. But we have to do something else. We can't keep doing the same thing. So please vote. Everyone vote. Your ballots will be out. Tim's going to make sure every one of you gets a ballot. And fill it out. No postage necessary. Thanks, Democrats.
State Representative District 7, Position 1, Representative Jacqueline Maycumber.
Thank you so much. I just want to talk a little bit about the future. I'm really excited about the future. I'm really excited about my children's future. I'm excited about the work that we have moving forward, including broadband and medical technology. I supported the governor's opiate bill. I supported the mental health legislation, and I look forward to making sure that the 7th District is strong. And our children are excited to be from the 7th District. We have a lot to look forward to in the next coming years, and I'm really excited to be a part of that in a bipartisan manner. And I will do everything I can to represent the 7th District and protect the 7th District. So I appreciate your vote, and thank you so much for coming out tonight.
District 7, Position 1 Challenger Randall Michaelis.
Hi again. If you have concerns about education, if you have certain concerns about school funding, if you have concerns about mental health issues in our schools, if you have concerns about how drugs, suicide are affecting our schools, if you have concerns about families in our schools, then I'm your person. Our children are our investment. That is what we should be doing. And whether you elect me or whether you elect my opponent, that is what the 7th needs to do. We need to look at our children and invest in them because they are our future. The best investment we can make is with education. I have a lifetime of leadership and accomplishment. I know how to get things done. If you elect me, I will be that representative for you in Olympia. I want to hear what your vision is and carry it to Olympia. Thank you.
Representative Joy Kretz from District 7, Position 2.
Well, thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks for sitting this long, folks.
I guess I was just thinking about one of the things I appreciate about the 7th District, and Shelley or Jacqueline could share it with you too, but when we're in Olympia, it's not my favorite place to be, trust me. We have a steady stream of people coming in there, and we've got offices next to us all around, and they go, who are these people? Because it's one after another. And I think it is a huge testament to how engaged the people in this district are. And you think about it, we get more visitors to the districts right next to Olympia. So I want to thank all the help from you folks coming over, testifying, buoying us up a little bit when we need it, and the input. You guys are having an impact by coming over and participating in the process. That's the biggest danger in America right now, is the public not being engaged, and I thank you guys for doing a lot of it.
District 7, Position 2 Challenger, Michael Bell.
Well, I appreciate Joel mentioning all the people that were in his office. The last time I was in Olympia, it was paid lobbyists from the corporations that were filling all of the corporate, or all of the legislators' offices. 14 years ago, Joel was elected, and he mentioned that #1 on his agenda was creating jobs, and that's been his #1 issue for 14 years. We are in the most economically depressed area in the state. The unemployment rate is double what the statewide average is. We have fewer people working in the 7th District today than we did 14 years ago. We need somebody that's going to fix that problem, and we're not going to solve it by talking about wolves and wildfires. We've got state agencies that are working on those things, and we need to work with those agencies to deal with it. But we need to start working on jobs, creating jobs, and doing something to stimulate the economy here in the 7th, and we can't do it by taking corporate contributions and listening to their lobbyists. Thank you.
Stevens County Assessor John Olson.
I thought we got a minute.
These are just closing statements.
Go ahead and give 30 seconds.
Do you want to say something for 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
Larry says okay.
I think my first trip over to Olympia, I met with a man that I respect a lot, that had spent time over there, worked in the lieutenant governor's office, and he said, when you come to Olympia, if you can't have lunch with somebody, listen to their story and tell them no, you got no business in Olympia, and I'm glad you realize that you don't belong there.
Stevens County Assessor John Olson.
I confess, I've been to Joel's office. And in tow with me, I had 3 other assessors from the 7th District. And the assessors do get together, we do talk, and we do talk about legislation with our legislatures. And Shelley and Jacqueline, we tell them what we like, we tell them what we hate. Pass this bill, don't pass that one. And we are an active part in that. I want to thank you for having us out here tonight. And it's a great pleasure to serve as county assessor. And it's kind of fun being a candidate. Like I told my wife, I'm exhaustipated. Love your support. I've asked you to vote for me. Thank you.
All right, Assessor Challenger Rick Johnson.
Well, I do appreciate the privilege of running for an office, which I've never done before. And I want to really thank my opponent. When we had our first meet and greet at Saunders Furniture here in Colville, my opponent came and he greeted me, and we talked and we said, we're going to discuss the issues. We don't want to bring up anything bad about the other person. We wanted to discuss the issues, and hopefully you'll make your decision based on how we answer the questions, how we present our case. And I applaud him for approaching me to have a clean campaign. And in case you don't know it, he's a veteran, and I really appreciate that. Of course, he has little signs on his And I just want you to know I am very pro-veteran. I have a son that's in the United States Navy serving right now. And I just appreciate the people of Stevens County. Doing the doorbelling and all the things that we've been doing, there are a lot of great people here in this county, and I appreciate you very much.
Stevens County Auditor Tim Gray.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I think regardless of the choices we make, we have a lot of very good qualified people. I think we're going to have a great success regardless of who's chosen. I do hope that you choose me for my particular position, but living in this county, watching this kind of thing tonight is why I love to be here. And I think that's why we all love to be here. So, good night.
Stevens County Auditor Challenger Lori Larson.
We'd like to thank Scott for being here tonight and doing this for us. And of course, all of you. I just wanted to speak for just a quick moment about my three core values that if you drive slow enough by any of my big signs, you can see I've listed commitment, service, and accountability. With regard to commitment, I do what I say I'm going to do. I serve in the area of need that presents itself, and that is why I'm running for auditor. I believe that that's an area of key need for our county, and I will ensure accountability in the office, and so I hope that you will give me your vote. Thank you very much.
Stevens County Commissioner number 2, Dawn DeShiel.
Thank you, and thank everyone and the realtors. I'd just like to recap what the Board of Commissioners has done, and since I've been on there in the last 8 years, pulled the county to a better financial position with a fund balance that allows us to operate. We've done some work with the sheriff to make sure they have vehicles and equipment to do their job. Also, we've worked on the forest plan for Colville National Forest. Those are some things we've done. Some things we need to do, though, too, is to continue to stay financially stable. I'd just like to ask you to continue supporting me and the other commissioners and some of the wise use of the taxpayer funds, and we promise to do that.
County Commissioner position number 2, Challenger Jeffrey Charvet.
I think you've all been here way long enough, so and you've heard probably the best of what I've got. I encourage you to look me up on Facebook. Ask me any questions after this. I'm happy to answer them. I'm looking very much forward to being your next county commissioner, and I'd really appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Stevens County Coroner Lori Sampson.
Thank you for coming out. I know it's really late. We're all very tired and I should be in bed by now, but it has truly been a pleasure to serve you guys for the last 7 years. I served 4 years as a deputy coroner and 3 years as your coroner. I'm in my 4th year now. And I really want to move forward and serve as your coroner next year. Being a coroner can be a really tough job, but it is absolutely a privilege to care for your families at a time when they're in need and to guide them through that process. And I'm going to be there for you, and that's my promise to you as voters, and I welcome your vote in November.
Stevens County Treasurer Leslie Valls.
Hi, my name is Leslie Bowles, and it has been my absolute pleasure to serve as your treasurer for over the last 2.5 years. As I kind of indicated earlier, the treasurer's office has over $150 million worth of receipts and revenue that flows through it annually for those multiple dozens of taxing districts, and we put all of those into those bank accounts, and we ensure that those bank accounts are balanced to the penny every day. But what is most great about Stevens County, and as to every one of us has pretty much said, is that we have to be innovators. We live in a very small county, and we have small budgets, and we don't have options as far as dozens of staff members in each of our offices. And you know how this was actually made clear to me was I coach U6 soccer, which is actually, for those of you who aren't familiar, don't have kids on that age, it's under 6-year-old soccer. So as you can imagine, it's like herding kittens. And so you have 3 under 6-year-olds on the field at any given time, and you look around and there's only 2, and one has scattered over there. And so I've been honored to serve in various ways in this community. I've been honored to be your treasurer, and I thank you so much for this opportunity. Every day I'll continue to be an innovator in the treasurer's office and also with the under 6-year-olds. Thank you.
Challenger for the treasurer's office, Trina Cox.
We're almost to the end of the line, so thank everyone for coming out tonight. I just want to state that I have had 26 years of accounting experience. I've worked with the treasurer's office. I've worked with the auditor's office before. I understand that's been my life, is to work in the accounting field. I've dealt with millions of dollars in revenues as well as expenditures, and I would really appreciate you guys to consider voting for me for your next Stevens County treasurer. Thank you.
Stevens County District Court Judge Gina Twite. Leslie, were you laughing at me? Okay.
Switching this up.
All right, well, thanks again, everyone, for coming out this evening. In closing, I just want to say it has been a blessing for me to serve as your district court judge for these past 9 years. I love my job. I love what I do each and every day. I also recognize as a judge the value of the separation of powers in our justice system. And I do stand up for that separation of powers and that policy and that principle, and I will continue to do so. What it comes down to is it should not be up to an elite group of people in the courthouse who decide who should be our judges. It should be you, the people, who decide. And I'm proud that you're here tonight, that you're becoming informed, and that you can make that decision. And again, I appreciate your support, and I hope for your vote come November. Thank you.
Stevens County District Court Judge Challenger Lech Radzimski. It's a hard name.
So at the end of every jury trial, the court tells the jury, you are the sole judges of the credibility of the witnesses. You have had, I think, pushing 30 people testify this evening. Your ballots are going to get mailed out next week. Like I told you earlier, I am proud of what I have accomplished. I want to live in this community. This is where I want to raise my family. Regardless how this election is going to turn out, I'm going to continue to live in this community, raise my family here, and work for you, the citizens of Stevens County. My request is that you go out and you educate yourselves about my race, but educate yourself about every single person that's in this room. We are all trying to do what we believe is best for this community. Again, please go out, talk to my supporters, ask them why. Ask all the judges why they're supporting one person, why the attorneys, law enforcement are throwing in behind one person. Thank you, and I hope you vote for me this November.
Stevens County Sheriff Candidate Mike Berry.
All right, I had something written up, but I'm not going to use it again. Thanks for all you diehards that are staying here this late, and thanks for everybody who came. I want to thank my wife and all the family members that are here that have been putting up with this for months now. We've had more parades than I can count and more town hall forums than I can imagine, and I am in awe at the people who have done this more than once. So the people who battle this and do it again, I surely respect you. Last thing, we have 28 days till the election, so I know my wife's counting down, and as well as probably all of us, and I can't wait for that event to occur. Thanks again for coming out. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you listening. It's been great to meet all of you and to go through this journey. And I'm Mike Berry, and I would sure appreciate your vote.
Sheriff's candidate, Brad Mankey.
Thank you all for coming out last, right? Couple key things. Intelligence matters. Leadership ability matters. I think my opponent and I both possess intelligence and leadership skills. The sheriff's office is a giant corporation. There's a lot of moving parts. I have the knowledge of every single one of those moving parts. Change is a process, it's not an event. So let me put my local knowledge to work for you. Thank you for coming out.
A really long night. How many big round of applause for all of our candidates today?